And a very happy Friday to you at 12:08 in the West. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wiggs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, let's check in with the U.S. House of Representatives and see if the master deal maker, Kevin McCarthy, has finally got the government funded.
On this vote, the yeas are 198, the nays are 232. The bill is not passed.
You know, I don't know how much time you spend watching C-SPAN, but when you watch the British Parliament, a day like today with a revelation like that is so much more impactful when the person who's reading it is wearing a powdered wig.
Well, and those people blast away. I mean, when you have as much insanity that's going on here in Parliament, it starts looking like soccer hooligans going after each other.
Or an LA City Council meeting. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. The big news today is that California's senior United States Senator Diane Feinstein passed away in Washington, D.C. earlier this morning. I was woken up by bookers over at CNN who were calling me to come on and talk about the life and times of Diane Feinstein. And Randy, I believe I had the fastest appearance I've ever had on CNN in my entire life.
Well, let's clarify. It wasn't CNN. It was CNN Max.
That's right. Because CNN got rid of CNN Plus, which is their streaming service, because no one was watching it. And now they've rebranded it as CNN Max and brought it back.
That's right. So it is a live stream of news, but not the news that's on TV. It's the not ready for primetime news. And you were booked on at 7 a.m. our time to talk about Diane Feinstein. They introduced the panel. They let one person start speaking. They immediately cut away to Schumer's eulogy of Feinstein and McConnell's eulogy of Feinstein and Kevin McCarthy's half-assed eulogy of Feinstein. And then they came back and they sent you home.
That's right. I got 2 words in on CNN, whatever they're calling it, this morning.
CNN Plus.
CNN Plus. No, it's CNN Max.
CNN Max, excuse me. Yes, CNN Max. And the 2 words were good morning.
Good morning. That was literally it. Good morning.
Well, at least now you're even for what you did to them on Wednesday night.
That's true. Now we're involved in a tit for tat. It's becoming the Sicilian thing. But yes, it is true. Diane Feinstein passed away at the age of 90, creating a vacancy in the California congressional delegation. Governor Gavin Newsom has the ability to appoint the successor to Diane Feinstein, and there's a whole lot of drama going on with that, which we'll get to a little bit later. But first, I want to spend some time talking about Diane Feinstein, because Diane Feinstein is a throwback Democratic politician that really doesn't exist anymore today. But because institutions like the U.S. Senate do not have term limits and reward seniority, typically what you have is you have people who represented a state or represented the politics of a state long ago, but are still there because they can deliver the pork back home. They can deliver the goods to the people who elected them. And that was certainly Diane Feinstein. She was chair of Judiciary, I believe Rules at one point in time. She was a very powerful United States senator. And one of the debates that's going on right now in Washington, D.C. is over the dress code. Because the senator from Pennsylvania, John Fetterman, wants to show up to work dressed like he's getting ready to rob a liquor store. And Chuck Schumer needs his vote. So Chuck Schumer decided, okay, we'll bend the rules on the dress code so you can look like a slob, so we are guaranteed to have your vote every time we need it. Well, there was a backlash among members of the Senate, both Republican and Democrat, and the old dress code was brought back. So now Lurch has to wear a suit and tie if he's going to show up and vote. But that reminded me of the differences between this current crop and senators like Diane Feinstein. Diane Feinstein, always, you look back at pictures of her, you look back at videos of her hair was always on point. Her makeup was always on point. She was always dressed in a professional manner, in a manner that she believed fit a United States senator. She not only wanted to behave the part and act the part, she wanted to look the part. And the last time I was in San Francisco, I got to have drinks and dine with a bunch of politicos up there, a bunch of people I've become friends with over the years, including John Dennis, who ran against Nancy Pelosi the last time. Willie Brown was there, others. And one of them was a man who was a driver, a longtime driver for Diane Feinstein here in California, before they replaced him with the Chinese spy. But that's a different story for a different day. And when I was talking with this gentleman, it's the first time I ever met him, I asked him, what was life like in the car with Diane Feinstein, where it's literally just you and her? I'm sure you saw a side of her that other people don't see. Maybe you developed a relationship with her, a friendship with her. What was it like spending all those hours in the car with Diane Feinstein? And he said something that didn't surprise me. However, I think it may be surprising to other people. He said she was all business all the time. Didn't crack a joke, didn't laugh at a joke, was always obsessed with getting places on time. And it wasn't because she was OCD or anything like that. She just looked at that job. She looked at the job of being a United States Senator, and she thought senators are supposed to show up on time. It is disrespectful to the institution if you make people wait for you. So you show up on time to every meeting that's on your calendar. And she also expected that if you had a meeting with a United States Senator, that you would show up on time too. And if you showed up to a meeting and you were 5 minutes late, she would absolutely dress you down in front of everyone in that room. And she wouldn't let up, and she wouldn't start the meeting until everyone in that room knew that you just got shellacked by a U.S. Senator. And she thought that would mean you would never show up late again. The reason I believe that Diane Feinstein was the way that she was in part due to her gender. I know we have a lot of people who are hyper-focused on race and gender and sexual orientation and those things. But I really do believe that her gender played a role in how she ran her shop. And I say that because when she was mayor of San Francisco, before that president of the Board of Supervisors, there weren't that many female politicians in those positions. And, of course, she had to comfort that city after Harvey Milk and George Moscone were assassinated by Dan White. That made her a national figure. But there weren't a lot of women in those positions. She ran for governor. She lost narrowly to Pete Wilson in 1990. And then in 1992, she took on appointed incumbent Republican U.S. Senator John Seymour, the former mayor of Anaheim, and defeated him, and she never lost re-election after that. But she was one of very few women in the United States Senate back then. And she made the conscious decision that as a woman in an arena dominated by men, she wasn't going to be the flirt. She wasn't going to dress like a slut. She wasn't going to try to butter you up by flirting with you or talking you up or doing those sorts of things. For her, she thought she needed to be all business all the time because that's what would generate respect for her. That's what would generate respect for a woman in a field dominated by men. I am going to be professional. I am going to be professional in my public life, in my private life, in Washington, in San Francisco, wherever. And there are certain senators that love to go on television. They call them show ponies. You could be a workhorse or you can be a show horse. She was one of these officials that very rarely made herself available to the public. I don't think I ever interviewed her on the radio. The entire time she was in the U.S. Senate, I don't think she ever made herself available for us, and when we would ask her on, she never said yes. Alex Michelson over at Fox 11, who interviews virtually every single California politico under the sun, said the same thing. It's been years and years and years since she's been on any of the Sunday public affairs show, which is typically the circuit that you do if you're a big, important head of a committee, chair of a committee. She didn't do those interviews unless she absolutely had to. From her point of view, to be a serious person, your work had to be done in the Congress. Writing the bills, amending the bills, voting on the bills, reading, meeting with lobbyists, meeting with constituents, those sorts of things. That's what she spent all of her time on. And because of that, she was hardly ever on television. She was hardly ever on the radio. And she looked down on politicians who thought that being in elected office was a way to become a celebrity or to become a household name. And she talked crap about those people nonstop because she hated them. Juxtapose Diane Feinstein with the man who's going to appoint her successor, Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is the exact opposite of Diane Feinstein. He is not the guy who is spending all of his time at the Capitol Dome meeting with the legislature and crafting legislation and cutting deals and those sorts of things. No. He'd rather go on Seth Meyers and The View and 60 Minutes and debate Ron DeSantis on Hannity and become the Biden surrogate after the GOP debate at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley and do all of the television shows. He loves being a celebrity. He loves being on TV. And he thinks that his status as a celebrity will, at some point, propel him to the White House. Well, Gavin Newsom is now involved in a horrible pickle because he has to appoint her successor. And in the words of Gary South, who is a strategist that has worked for Gavin Newsom for a long time, that is a horrible position to be in because he's going to end up with hundreds of pissed off people and one ingrate. And Gavin Newsom is also boxed in terms of who he can choose to replace Diane Feinstein. Because he told the people of California that he would nominate a black woman to replace her in that seat. Well, we now have a race that is underway for the candidates who want to replace her. One of them is a black woman, Barbara Lee, the congresswoman from Oakland, and she is consistently polling in third place. If the polls are right, she's going to finish out of the money, and she will not be on the November ballot. It's going to be Adam Schiff and Katie Porter, two white Democratic candidates. And there are no good decisions. There are no good choices for Gavin Newsom. He either appoints Barbara Lee and pisses off Adam Schiff and Katie Porter and all of their donors and supporters. They will be absolutely furious with Gavin Newsom. He could appoint a black female caretaker, someone who would be there for a year and a quarter and then pledge not to run for re-election. Well, if you do that, you risk upsetting black women because you're essentially not giving them an opportunity to hold the seat.
And that's what Barbara Lee's been going off on Newsom for the past couple of weeks since he floated that idea.
That's right. It's generated nothing but negative attention for him. The third option is to renege on his promise and appoint someone else. He could appoint a man. He could appoint a woman who is not black. He could appoint himself. In fact, if he appoints himself, that probably gives himself a better opportunity to be president because he won't have to run in 2024 to be a sitting elected official and also a candidate for the presidency. If he appoints himself to the U.S. Senate and then wins the election, He'll be there for 6 years, and he'll be a sitting U.S. senator and candidate for the presidency. That's a much bigger power position than being a former somebody.
Yeah, but wouldn't there be a massive blowback if Gavin appoints himself to that seat?
There would be, led by Barbara Lee. And everyone else, by the way. You'd upset Adam Schiff. You'd upset Katie Porter. And don't forget, Adam Schiff has the backing of Nancy Pelosi, who I think is still behind the scenes running the Democratic operation in the House. So he would upset literally everyone in the Democratic Party if he were to do that, except himself. There are no good options for Gavin Newsom right now. It doesn't matter what you do, people are going to be very angry with you. And people have long memories when they feel like you promised them something and didn't deliver. Why did Gavin Newsom box himself in like this? Why did he feel the need to promise that this appointee would be a black woman? Because he was being a show pony. He was on Joy Reid's show on MSNBC, and she decided to pop the question, will it be a black female that you appoint? And you're on live television, and you know what she wants to hear, and you know what that audience wants to hear, and you know that if you look squirrely, it's not a good look. So he said yes. He didn't have to go on with Joy Reid. He didn't have to answer questions about who he would appoint to that seat. But he wanted to because it gave him an opportunity to be on national television. It gave him an opportunity to go on a network where they all like him, or they're all predisposed to like him, and he could make his team very happy. But it was an unforced error. At the time, he probably wasn't aware that he just created a massive problem for himself, but now he has to deal with the consequences of his error in judgment. And had he listened to Diane Feinstein, and had he behaved like Diane Feinstein, and he not gone on those shows, and not boxed himself into a corner, he would be in a much stronger position today, and he would certainly have more options. But that's fundamentally not who Gavin Newsom is. He is not a workhorse. He's a show horse. In her final years, Diane Feinstein was clearly losing it, and she clearly stuck around too long. And for those of you who are fans of Diane Feinstein, unfortunately, that is going to be a significant part of her memory. That is going to be a significant part of what people remember about Diane Feinstein.
Like when the LA Times was rude as hell to her?
That's right. That's right. And by the way, all of these Democrats who are now saying wonderful things about Diane Feinstein were the same people who were saying nasty, catty things about her behind her back to reporters in all of those pieces that slammed her for being senile. They forced her back because they wanted her vote. She was a sick woman who shouldn't have been flying across the country to cast votes. But they didn't care about her health. They didn't care about her well-being. They didn't care about any of that. They just wanted to make sure that she was there so they got their agenda through. I'm not saying they killed her, but it wasn't helpful for her health to do that. And I'm sure many of them have guilty consciences. When I was getting ready to go on television this morning to talk about Diane Feinstein, I noticed that there weren't very many members of the California delegation who were on the news talking about her. Apparently, many of them were asked, and John Garamendi said yes. The others said no. I would have a guilty conscience, too, if I was out there saying nasty things about this woman literally right before she died and forced her to get on that plane and go to Washington, D.C. to cast those votes, including the day before she died. So now we play the waiting game to see who Gavin Newsom appoints to replace Diane Feinstein. He says it's going to be a black woman. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't be. We'll find out. If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, if you want to listen to the podcast edition of this program, that process just got a whole lot easier.
That's right, because we've got a brand new and improved app. It's the brand new KABC app, the easiest way to listen to podcasts of this show and to listen live to the stream anytime that you're in a place that doesn't get good AM radio reception of the old 790s. So search for KABC AM or 790 KABC in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. Download the app, and you instantly are able to go to all of the podcasts of this show. It works with Apple CarPlay and the Android Car app, so it's never been easier. You won't believe how easy it is.
I cannot believe it, quite frankly.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes Peter Gabriel to the Acrisure Arena on October 14th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com, but right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Good luck dialing.
Right now, we're going through the sound of what former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown had to say about the late U.S. Senator Diane Feinstein.
A whole bunch of different news cameras and microphones went to go find Willie Brown to talk about his friend and fellow San Francisco Mayor, Diane Feinstein. This is KTVU.
Our local reaction continues to come in following the death of Senator Diane Feinstein, former San Francisco.
Someone's a little verklempt.
Senator Diane Feinstein, former San Francisco mayor from 78 to 88. We also want to speak to another well-known mayor of San Francisco, Willie Brown. Ali Rasmus is out there with him live this morning, speaking to him about this sudden passing.
I think they just followed him when he was getting coffee.
Well, you can always find Willie at the restaurants in San Francisco because he goes out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, that's great.
To her successful effort to produce an assault weapon ban, or they go back to her confrontation on several issues, and in particular involving what occurred on the floor of the Senate when she went there for Anita Hill, and Biden was the chair of the Judiciary Committee. It's amazing how many things in history Diane was a part of.
She was criticized for not retiring. What is your response to that?
I think Willie's going to have a good one for this.
Well, he's 92.
He's 92 and sounds more with it than the president of the United States, who's 12 years younger than him.
At almost 90 years of age? What do you mean? What is my response to that?
You knew that was coming.
At almost 90 years of age? What do you mean? What is my response to that? I can tell you that it is always wrong for people to conclude that if the people elected you, you ought to serve your term, period. And you ought to serve it with distinction, because for sure you got elected because people had a lot of trust in your integrity. And if at any stage you are incapable of doing the job, be assured you'd quit, and Diane would have done that.
Do you think she was capable up until the very end?
Diane Feinstein casted a vote yesterday afternoon.
Was that the vote to reinstate the dress code?
Could have been.
That might have been her last vote ever, because that was unanimous.
Diane Feinstein casted a vote yesterday afternoon in the U.S. Senate, and then she died last night. That's an amazing, and I got that information from my daughter, who works with Cory Booker back there currently, and
the Willie Brown legacy continues.
Oh, yes.
They were on the floor yesterday, and she saw Diane, and she called earlier today crying. That's how much the young women really loved Diane.
What do you think she represented to San Francisco and then California national politics?
She set the highest standard that most of us will never be able to match in every category. She was better prepared. She was more focused on issues that affected the lives of people that may not have had any political benefit to them. And hers was not ride along for TV purposes. Hers was riding along to learn.
How much of a presence did she continue to have here in San Francisco, even as a state senator?
Major. Believe me, if you were not impactful, people wouldn't even criticize you for being ill.
What was she like on a personal level? You were close friends with her for many years.
On some days she was a pain.
Well, he's being honest.
On some days she was a pain.
How so? Just in her persistence?
The reporter has no idea how to follow up with that.
What do you say? The woman just died. You're talking to one of her friends, and that's what they say.
On some days she was a pain.
That's 3 seconds where the reporter has no idea how to follow up that.
I'm going to give her a pass on that one.
On some days she was a pain.
How so? Just in her persistence about things?
No, because she would remind those of us in the world of politics who seem to be looking for the opportunity to be appearing on television rather than appearing decipherable in operation of policy.
Oh, so she went after people who go on TV all the time.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So maybe humbling the attention grabbers to focus on the politics and the policy.
Well, Diane was never one to pass the opportunity to criticize, and that always bothered me.
Oh, Willie's great.
Anything else you'd like to tell us or share?
Nothing else.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care.
Former mayor.
Keep you guys out of here all this.
Well, we were waiting for you, but thank you for talking to us about this and sharing your insight and your wisdom. We appreciate that.
All right.
Let Willie have breakfast.
Those eggs are getting cold.
So that was This Morning in San Francisco. Willie Brown on Diane Feinstein.
What was she like as a friend? Sometimes she could be a pain.
On some days she was a pain.
Can't use that as a drop because of what it's in reference to, and that would be tasteless. So we got some good use out of it there.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Dink writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Has anyone floated the idea that Newsom could appoint London Breed, thereby fulfilling his black woman pledge? No doubt she would love to get the hell out of San Francisco.
London Breed, also, when she was a teenager, was the babysitter for Willie Brown's kids.
And I learned today that when London Breed was in middle school, she would play French horn for Mayor Diane Feinstein.
Boy, the state is run by one tiny little incestuous clique. All right, we know that Gavin Newsom has a big decision coming up, and Randy, you've got some news on that.
That's right. We are learning through Politico that talked to one of Gavin Newsom's aides. He is planning on making the decision of who to appoint to fill Diane Feinstein's seat in days, within months. They want to be respectful, but they know they've got to get this done as soon as possible because the Senate needs that vote. And from everything we've heard so far, what he is leaning towards is a caretaker that would be a black woman that would vow to not run in the general election.
And he's saying this decision will be made public in a matter of days?
Yeah, we'll probably find out next week. I mean, the Senate margins are major razor thin. So they're going to need to do something ASAP.
Well, prior to this news, Gavin Newsom was going to war with the oil companies because gasoline is now through the roof here in California. I filled up yesterday. It was $121 to fill up my Ford. Everyone is being pinched at the pump. And Gavin Newsom says, don't blame me, blame the oil companies.
For more, here's Cron 4. Oh, that rhymed.
Probably do not have to tell you, but gas prices continue to soar in California. And also, they continue to be about $2 higher on average than what other people across the country are paying. Now, Governor Newsom is once again trying to change that, but Republican lawmakers are looking for something else. KRON 4's Dan Kerman reports.
I literally feel like we've done the exact same story every single fall.
Well, he doesn't want to take blame for gas prices going through the roof, so he's got to find a boogeyman.
California gas prices continue to rise. Bay Area drivers are paying well over $6 a gallon for regular. Statewide, AAA says the cost of a gallon of regular has gone from an average of $5.28 a month ago.
John, during the break, let's look up Gorda.
to $6.03 per gallon now. That's well over the nationwide average, which AAA reports is $3.83 a gallon, $2.20 less than Californians are paying.
There's no justification for that. You can look at all the environmental rules and regulations and taxes that the state imposes compared to the national average, and you're not even going to get to $1. So where is that mystery surcharge on top of that?
I thought you had a special session to get to the bottom of that led to nothing.
Yeah, and let's just review the facts here for a moment. What he's alleging is that all of the oil companies are getting together to collude against one state for reasons unknown.
I wouldn't put it past him.
California Governor Gavin Newsom says oil companies are gouging the state, and now he sent this letter directing the California Energy Commission to determine whether penalties and restrictions should be assessed against oil companies.
They are ripping off taxpayers of this state and people at the pump.
Don't blame me. Don't blame me. Don't blame me.
The governor has also directed the Air Resources.
Although it would be funny if they intentionally jacked up the price because Gavin and Rob Bonta are suing them for climate change.
They'd certainly deserve it.
The governor has also directed the Air Resources Board to allow refineries to ramp up production and distribute its winter blend of gasoline now, which should also help to bring prices down sooner than later.
We're asking the governor to call for a special session to deal with the gas prices.
But California Republicans, like State Senator Janet Nguyen, want to go one step further. Republican legislators have sent the governor this letter calling for a special session of the legislature to temporarily suspend the 58-cent a gallon gas tax.
He's not going to do that.
Good luck with that, with a, $42 billion hole in the budget?
Get us all on the same page, and let's find the true answer. That's the only way we can find a permanent solution.
A spokesperson for the governor says suspending the gas tax will not ensure that money goes back into the pockets of Californians. Oil companies could easily pocket that extra money to further line their pockets.
Those greedy bastards.
Wait, it's the people who are buying gas at the pump who pay the tax, not the oil companies.
He made this claim a lot last year, too. If we suspended the gas tax, there's no guarantee the oil company would lower the price.
I love the fact that if you just repeat a conspiracy theory enough times and you look professional while you're saying it, you're wearing a suit, you're wearing a tie, you got your hair all in place, you don't necessarily look like Alex Jones, but you're using the same logic as the 9/11 truthers. I guess in a one-party state, this is normal. We've got 2 more hours coming up on the John Phillips Show. The Fix California hour is next. Don't you go anywhere. This is Talk Radio 790 KABC.
Because we chose to screw you.